Hello, I'm Beth and welcome to VIP Yoga. VIP means Variations for Individualized Practice. So in this short tutorial, I'm going to show you many different versions of a single yoga pose. Today's yoga pose is going to be Salabhasana or Locust Pose. Now, these are not the only variations out there. There are just a number of different ones using many different props that I have around me. You'll see I have a chair, I have different bolsters, blocks, anything that you can find in your house to use as props, grab them. We're going to go over a lot of different options so that you can customize your practice to you. And VIP, again, Variations for Individualized Practice. It means it's all about you. Join me over on your yoga mat. Right, so I usually start by showing the more classic version of the pose, basically what you might see if you looked it up in a book. So let's come down to the floor, prone, which means on our front body. So locust pose is a back bend. This is less about how to do locust pose, so we won't take a lot of time to set it up. More, again, about how to do it for you. Come down if you're practicing along. And I'm just going to prop myself up for a moment. You'll take your legs back. You can customize how far apart they are. And that's the first thing in every practice we customize is where our arms and our legs go. I'm going to stretch my arms back, stretch my legs back, lift my front body, and lift my back body. I just want to explain to you what I'll be doing before I do it. So this is locust. This is the back bend, reaching the legs out, reaching the hands out. My palms can be toward me or they can stay face down. I have a little bit of an arch throughout my entire back, so I'm forming a hammock shape in my back. And that's locust pose. All right, I'll come up for a moment. So I started off with a traditional arm shape down toward the feet. The first thing that I'm going to vary is my arms. So again, we can vary how the arms are placed, how the legs are placed, and then all these props around us. You can also mix and match these different versions. So if I show you one thing seated or lying, you might be able to do the same thing standing, or a version of the arms or whatever standing. So I'm going to come back down and show you a few variations for the arms. Now, as we do this, the legs can stay down. I will either keep them down if I get tired or lift them. Starting with our first variation, reaching the arms back, lifting the legs. So we can keep the arms back, or the arms can come out like a cape. They can be out in a T shape. You can take the arms into a cactus. And you can also reach the arms anywhere out in front of you, more in a V or a superhero pose. All right, coming out of that. So we did that arm version with both the arms and the legs. Another thing we can vary is to use the upper body only. So take the legs out of it, keep the feet flat on the floor. Any of those arms shaped with the upper body only, I'm going to show you a few propped versions of that. So I'm going to grab my bolster. I have two bolsters here. We're going to use the rectangular one later. I also have this nice cylindrical bolster. Many of you don't have that. That's totally fine. Wrap up a blanket roll and that will work just as well. In fact, this bolster is pretty fat and thick. It might be too much for some people. So I'm going to put it right here under the rib cage to support the upper body, make it be less work for upper body, but still a great stretch into the back bend. Bolster comes down. I set up for my locust pose. So now as I set up, I'm already going to be elevated in my upper body. I want my pelvis to come down toward the floor. And then I can reach the arms out in front in the Superman position, which may be less accessible if you're not using a prop. You can try it this way. I can get a really nice shoulder stretch in this cactus arm position. I can reach the arms back in the more classic version. And I can even put the hands on the bolster if I want to rest my arms, but really just emphasize this back bend and lift in the front body. All right, I'm going to come out of that. And you'll notice I'm doing a little bit of resting in between showing you these poses. Back bends can be pretty strenuous. and produce a lot of energy in the body. So I'm going to take a few moments as I transition. Now we can do the upper body version, also just the upper body, but with a chair. So I have my chair already set up for that. I'm going to roll this bolster right out of the way. Move the chair a little closer to the mat, and you want to make sure if you're using the chair that you have at least 2 of the legs, preferably all 4, on your mat so that the chair doesn't slide. I'm going to come down again, and this time I'm going to take one hand, maybe scooch back a little bit more, and then the other. So you notice I have that same lift that I had. This time I'm just using the hands. It's still less effort, but it's more of a stretch than when I had the bolster underneath me. And come down from that. And then we'll do a few more versions on the floor before we stand up and show you some versions standing up. Now on the floor, we did upper body only. You can also do locust with the lower body only. When you do that, there are 2 places to put your head. You can rest your forehead on the floor or rest your chin on the floor, just the front part of your chin, which still takes a little bit of that curve into your cervical spine, into your neck. So I'll show it both ways. I'll start with resting my forehead on the floor. It might be a little harder to hear me. So my forehead on the ground, legs only locust. And then I'll show you with the front of my chin on the ground, and again, legs only locust. All right. So before we come up to standing, I actually want to show you one other thing with the rectangular bolster. I said we were going to use it at the end, and we will, but I want to show you one more thing from the floor. So this is a great version if any of those floor versions don't feel accessible and you're just having a lot of trouble getting that lift. Having a bolster, or again, a couch cushion, several firm blankets underneath you can help to give you that lift and make the floor actually further away, but then you don't have as much lifting to do in your body. So I'll show you what I mean. And I lie my whole torso on this. So it's really coming from, it depends on how tall you are, but for me it's a little bit lower than my hip crease and up to about my sternum. Now, as you see, my upper body is already pretty lifted. I can do the feet down version and do the upper body only, and oh, it's so much easier to lift the upper body in this way. And if I scooch a little forward, I think I can get a little more support for my legs. And then when I lift, you'll really feel like you're flying. Maybe you want to do the superhero version here. That feels so nice, but I want to show you a few more versions. So I'll move this bolster out of the way. And we're going to come up to the wall. Hopefully you have a wall nearby. There are 2 ways we can practice at the wall. One is facing the wall, and the other is facing away. Facing the wall, I'm going to do a half lotus version. And I'll show you the half version on the floor when we get back. So my hands are going to be more in a cobra position right next to my body at the wall. And then I'm going to put one leg back and arch back into the locust. So you'll see that from behind. I'll talk you through it still. Hands at the wall. I'm going to step a little away from the wall so I can lean my chest, lean my spine into it, and then slide one leg behind, and I can practice lifting one leg and then arching back into the pose. And we can do that with the other leg. Slide the foot back. You can keep the toes down if you like as you arch, or you can lift the leg back, getting some arch. All right, the next version is, like I said, it's facing, being near the wall, but facing away. I'm going to grab a strap for this version. You don't need the strap, but I find having my hands interlaced not particularly comfortable. If you can easily interlace the hands, go ahead and do that. That's another arm version that I didn't give you on the floor. As I said, we can always mix and match. I'm going to hold with my hands, my palms away from me, and stretch my hands back that way. And you can keep your hands fairly close if you can get them close. So from here, I'm going to reach my palms back toward the wall. I'm also going to pull them down so my shoulder blades aren't coming up. And I'm going to take my feet fairly close to the wall so I can start to lean my chest, my torso away from the wall, open up across the sternum, the front of the body, start to tip my head back a little bit, not too much, but my hands are touching the wall and maybe my head softly grazes the wall as I arch back. All right, those are your standing versions. We're going to come to our chair now. I'm going to pull the chair back over to the mat. I'll keep the strap, but you can do this without the strap on the chair. So the chair locust is fairly similar to what we just did on the wall, except that now we're seated, and it's going to be really more into the upper body. So let's see if I can work my hands around here. I hold my hands behind me on the chair. And then I'm going to start to lift my hands away, just like we lifted them back toward the wall. Arching up in the top of my chest, my sternum. Lifting up, not letting the head go back too much. Encouraging the back bend really largely in my upper back. And let go of that. I'll just show you for a moment, turned around toward you, or turned my back toward you. And I'll show you that fingers interlace version. So same thing here, except you can interlace the fingers, draw your shoulder blades down and back, pulling your hands away from you, and then using that motion to help you arch the upper back. You can also simply hold onto the edge of the chair as you do that. Right, and then come back. Many different versions, many different bodies, many different types, many different abilities, many different versions of yoga. We are going to come back down to the floor. All right, before we come back down to lying, I want to show you hands and knees version. So that's another option if being completely prone doesn't feel good, but you still want to try it on the floor, is to come onto your hands and knees, slide one leg behind you to start, and then as you lift that leg up, you arch the upper body forward. You can lightly point the toe if you like. So my upper body is coming into more of the cow pose shape where I'm letting my chest come down. Now you can turn this into an alternate arm, alternate leg version by reaching up with the opposite arm. So a little different from your bird dog in that you're not keeping parallel like we do in bird dog, you're arching up into it. And then come down. Of course, you would do that on the other side as well. And you can do that one-legged, one-arm version completely prone on the floor. So if it's too hard to get the lift of both, you can do one leg, one arm. And we haven't done much with the blocks. Usually in these practices, I use the blocks a lot. We're going to use it for our very last pose. But before we get to that, I want to show you one other version. So the block between the legs can help us to feel the legs a little bit more and focus on the legs when we do our locust pose. So it would look something like this, but you might need a firm pillow or towel rather than a block. I'm going to scooch myself back down. So then as I set up for locust with any arm position I like, in fact, I'll keep my hands in cobra hands here. I really want to squeeze in with my inner thighs on the block. And then I might not get as much lift in my legs, but I can feel the muscles around my legs making an effort. And I might feel more openness and expansiveness in my upper back. Or more activity in my upper back, more openness in my low back. And then I can try another hand variation if I'd like. And release. All right, if you've done one of my tutorials before, you know that I usually end with some kind of restorative version. Restorative means that we're using the props just to allow us to sink into the pose. One of my favorite ways to practice yoga. And you actually can do this with locust pose. For this, you're going to need 2 blocks and then an optional bolster, perhaps even an optional third block, and I'll show you how to use that or something to prop the bolster. I think I have another prop around that I can grab. First things first. The 2 blocks are going to go toward the top of your mat. It's going to be your shoulders that go on the block. So you want enough width between the bolsters, or excuse me, between the blocks for your body. Probably going to take a little practice to find out where that is. Let's see how this looks for me. I have the blocks almost to the edge of my mat. And we'll just do a practice to see if that's the right spot. Yeah, that seems about right for me. Now you can place your head down in either of the positions we talked about before on forehead. My chin doesn't reach with my shoulders elevated, or you can have something here under your head to support your head. And so this is our supportive version where it supports the shoulders. We don't have to make any efforts with the shoulders. Palms can be up or down. And the upper body has a little lift, and you can let the head rest down in a more restorative position. So that's the position for the upper body. You can stay with that as long as you like. It's a chance to really go into yourself. It's very internal because it's face down. Here's what you can do if you want to add the lower body. Just going to move my blocks a little bit. And we'll take the bolster at the bottom of the mat. The bolster is going to be for the calves, the front part, well, really the shins, the front part of the legs. So that's going to elevate so we get that bowl or that hammock shape. Now the bolster can be flat. Luckily, got another cushion here. You can also put something on the far side of the bolster to give it a little elevation. And we have all these props set up. It could be a little tricky getting into. We'll give it a shot. So my knees are going to be just ahead of the bolster. And then same place for my shoulders as I was before. And when you are propped up in a restorative pose like that, you can stay as long as you like. That felt really nice for me. I loved having the front of my shins supported in the bolster as I was in that prone position and allowing that openness across my shoulder blades, across my collarbones actually. So I hope you like this. I hope it gave you some ideas for you. Please hit the like button and let me know in the comments what worked. Subscribe if you want more videos like that. Here is my whole VIP yoga series. I hope to see you again on my channel. Thank you so much for being here.